let's not treat the action like broad comedy action. Let's like make this movie like, let's go to the jungle. Let's really do this. Let's treat it like we're making Raiders of the Lost Ark, even though we aren't, because we're putting fish out of water in. So instead of Indiana Jones, it's a romance novelist or the cover model who aren't great in the fight. But let's shoot it like it is Indiana Jones up there. We talked about the story of her character and how that was really resonating with us as like a woman who is like isolating, cocooned from the world because life didn't turn out the way that she wanted it to. She had a great heartbreak. And I think that was something that we could all relate to because we were all heartbroken at home, isolated, so many people's careers falling apart and people getting sick and dying. And like, we read that script and we're like, this is the adventure I want to go on. I want to escape. I want to get pulled out of my home and go on an adventure and realize that there's more chapters to write. She's incredible because she cares so much about every element of the movie and has an opinion on things, and it's in a way that is like for the good of the movie. She really cares about the movie being great, and that can mean things like taking big swings and convincing someone like Brad Pitt to do the movie.
She's like great artists in any field that you encounter an artist, in that she's very aware of developing what her strengths are, what she thinks works. Like she's built a brand, she's built an identity, and she's learned herself and her audience. And there's a very developed relationship between the two. And so it is like being around a musician who has developed their style, or being around a painter who has kind of built their brand of this is how I approach this and this is why I do this, and very aware of that, and that helped feed into the script too.
She's terrific and she's great in movies like Bird Box and The Unforgiven, but it was such an honor for us to be able to like bring back the funny Sandy to audiences, which I feel like is another thing that was a huge draw for this movie with us, obviously, was that we could be a part of that and that we could just work with her and learn from her. I mean, honestly, it was like, our week one on this movie was crazy, and we were like in crazy jungle environments and stuff, and just watching her and how you start rolling and how she's just like so charismatic on camera, and you see this magic and you're like, oh, this is what it's like to work with a movie star. It's just so immediate. And then I watched this like honeymooning couple or something, I guess, didn't get the memo. And they were walking down to the beach, and it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. We're watching them like clock them one at a time. Where it's like, where they see, they first see Channing Tatum, and they're like, oh my God, this Channing Tatum. And then they see Sandra Bullock, and they're like, and the guy grabs his girl's arm, and they're like doing this thing, and then they see Brad Pitt, and they started doing this. It was like seeing all through. It was and in that moment, I like was able to like quantum leap into their bodies and see this situation, and I was like, I'm at that fucking table with these guys. This is insane. This is insane.
You start doing that,
and I was like this, and Brad was like, what's going on? I was like, out the view, you know.
There are tremendous complications of shooting like in the Dominican Republic, and shooting in the Dominican Republic during a pandemic when it's already extremely difficult to get things to that island, and there's very little on it. So like what you bring is what you have, including like if for Loretta's house or something like that, you would just kind of take that for granted.
We had to build the whole thing.
We had those things don't exist there, and then this is all happening at the same time that globally there's a supply chain problem. And so like those are the kinds of things that would be just an impossible obstacle to overcome if you didn't have powerhouses behind you helping to navigate that stuff behind the scenes and support you in that. That's that studio system that goes beyond the executives that we're working directly with, but that larger studio infrastructure
Right.
makes that kind of stuff
Yeah, the
possible.
studio, like the producers, like they took away all of these things that we would have worried about on an indie film. Like we, on this tiny little Oregon movie we were going to make, we're doing all of the figuring out of the COVID stuff and all that. Whereas like you with the studio, you're just like, they're just like, everything's taken care of. Channing was our first idea, but there was that big question of, will they have chemistry? I mean, there's a big age gap. He's from a different generation. We put them together in a room and
In a Zoom room.
in a Zoom room, and it was like, it was crazy. It was like, this is incredible. You still have to like focus it on either the story or the set piece or the moment, and like create those little arcs in each scene and those things that, yes, they're great together, but they want you to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
They're not wanting to just like go off and do stuff. They're like, what are we doing? What do you want me to do? And you're taking them through it.
Yeah, that's a super interesting thing about working with talent on this level, is that still they want a director who's got the big picture, and it's important to have that big picture of what's the shape of this given scene or this given moment.
And Sandy like even said, I mean, at the end of this movie, she was like, thank you so much for directing me. Like people like, I think that's the thing that happens to stars like her, is people don't give direction anymore because they're like, oh, you're the star.
Do your thing. Do
Yeah,
your Sandra Bullock thing.
but then you just feel lost. They feel lost the whole time. Like, is this working? What's going? Like, I think people want direction.
Yeah, and they don't have the whole movie, and they haven't been talking to the production designer, and they haven't been working with the DP, and so like we've got all these things in your head, and I think you can leave your actor feeling lost if you just assume all of that is in their head too, and that they have the big picture of what this scene is.